Hey everybody, welcome to part 2 of the Polaroid photo project. We just saved our work and now we're going to create a shadow. We're going to make it look like this lady's head is casting a shadow onto the Polaroid picture. There are multiple ways that you can create this shadow, but the way that I choose to do this is with the paintbrush. I'm going to create a new layer. The shortcut for that is Control-Shift-N. You don't have to use the shortcut, but just wanted to tell you so that you know. Now I can try really hard to paint within the lines and not paint outside of the Polaroid, but to make it even easier to make sure I'm really accurate with my painting, I'm going to hold down Control and click right here on this Polaroid layer. And that is going to give me an outline, and anything I paint within it will show, and anything I paint outside of that selection will not show. Now I want to get the perfectly right color, so I'm going to hover over here and notice that the shadow is not just gray like you would normally think a shadow would be. It actually has a little bit of a brown tint to it. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pick the color. Now if you click on the little color swatch down here in the bottom left, then it will pull up a color picker, and you can just click on the color you want to copy. Another way you can do that is by holding down Option and then clicking wherever you want, and that will copy whatever color you click on. So if I click on this button over here, I can go over to the color swatch and see that it copied that blackish brown color. Now I can click anywhere over here on her hand, on her watch, and copy the exact colors. Now I'm going to press B to select the paintbrush tool, and using the soft round pressure opacity brush, which is over here in my brushes panel, I'm going to paint in this little shadow behind her head, and it's okay if it crosses over her head a little bit, we can erase that later. And then I'm going to come over here to my blend modes, click on this drop down menu and select multiply, and look what happens to our shadow. Instead of putting color just on top, it shows what's underneath it as well. And now I feel like it's a little strong. This is definitely a call you have to make yourself as to whether it is too light or too dark or just right. You can come over here to the opacity option and make it lighter if you'd like, if it's too dark. So I'm going to move mine to about 60% for now. Now that I have my shadow, I'm going to deselect everything using Control-D. Now if we come over here to the bottom of the Polaroid, notice that we need a shadow there to make it look like it's really in front of her. So what I want to do is I want to paint, but I want to paint under the Polaroid but on top of the photo. So I'm going to create a new layer and place that new layer under the Polaroid but on top of the photo. It'll just be sandwiched in between the two. Now I'm going to take the magnetic lasso tool. I'm going to go to the third tool and hold it down until I see a drop-down menu, and then I'm going to select magnetic lasso tool. Now you might remember this from earlier. It's going to help us select the dress. Now once you've done that, you're going to take the brush with that same color that you were using before. You're going to create a line across the dress following the angle of the Polaroid. Now you might have to go over the line again to make it a little bit darker. And now what I'm going to do is select a color that's a little bit darker than the one I just used by dragging it down into this darker area. And then I'm going to create another shadow that's just right at the edge, right up against the Polaroid picture. I want to be able to see both that really dark shadow and the lighter shadow. Now that I've done that, I can erase the paint from the fingers, but I want to show you what happens when you just use the eraser tool to erase the shadow. There's a problem with that. If I do it this way, then it makes it so if I erase too much, then I've messed up my shadow. So what you want to do is press Control-D to deselect everything. Then we are going to add a layer mask to the layer that we're on right now, which is the painting layer. So I'm going to make sure my brush tool is selected, and I'm going to make sure that my color is switched to black. And since I painted over these hands, I need to hide the portion of the shadow that's covering the hands. And once you've done that and it looks good, then go ahead and change the blend mode by clicking this drop down menu and changing it to multiply. Now you can see the pattern of the clothes underneath, and it looks like a more realistic shadow. Now you can change the opacity based on what you think looks good. If it needs to be a little lighter, then you can move the opacity down, and that will make your shadow a little bit lighter. Alright, now we're going to choose the crop tool, which is this tool over here. The shortcut is the letter C, and we're going to drag out the corner. We're going to expand this picture a little bit so that the edges of the Polaroid aren't so close to the top, and just to give it a more square orientation. And I want to make sure that my bottom layer is selected. Now press Control J to duplicate the layer, because anything that we do to this original layer will be permanent, so we want to make sure we have a copy just in case. Now lock the bottom layer to make sure nothing happens to that layer. Select the copied layer. Now I'm going to select the rectangular marquee tool. Shortcut is M. Now with this rectangular marquee tool, I'm going to select this open space that I have created with a little bit of the blue of my sky in the selection. Now that I've got the left, top, and right sides selected, right click and select Content Aware Fill. A large window is going to pop up, and after a minute it will create a preview for you, and it's going to do the work for us, and it's going to fill in that area with the sky color. And before pressing OK, go to where it says Output to. It'll default to New Layer, but you want to select Current Layer, and then press OK.